if we graph effects versus time, with effects on this axis and time down here, we take the drug at time 0. These are hours. During the first hour is the onset of the mental effects. These effects will become more pronounced. They will increase until they reach a peak in about 6 hours. They will then gradually taper off for a total trip, if you will, of about 20 hours. After which we have another 48-hour period that corresponds very much to a hangover. Now, this is not a hangover of the kind with which you perhaps have had some experience. This is a mental rather than a physical hangover. This is a feeling, a period, a time of depression, feeling very, very badly, very low, very depressed, very bad with the world. So we're talking about a total trip here of about 72 hours. It would just fit into a weekend pass. Now, is this 72-hour trip any worse than a good, solid binge? And the answer is yes, it's a whole heck of a lot worse. One of the reasons is that alcohol is self-limiting. If you'll be honest with yourselves. If you start drinking, and if you continue to drink steadily, you will, within a period of time, cease to function. If you continue to drink long enough, you will become horizontal, and you will stop. With LSD, this doesn't happen. Unfortunately, the man who is psychotic on LSD can continue to function. He continues to do things. Worst of all, perhaps, he continues to do things and feel that he is doing them extremely well. Now, this is dangerous. What are some more of the dangerous effects of this material? What do you have to know if you're thinking about taking it? First and foremost, perhaps, and maybe the one that you've read the most about, is that some people, and I can't tell you if I'm talking about 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 100,000, but some people will reach the peak of these mental effects right here, and they will stay there. From here on out, these people are insane. They are psychotic. Now, what other immediate problems do we have with this material? This time period in here is extremely dangerous. If someone gives you this material and you don't know you're getting it, the time in which these mental symptoms are beginning and increasing is terrifying. If we take a man who knows he's getting LSD, perhaps he's had many trips and they've been pleasant, and yet in the rising phase of the mental effects, you put him under a little stress. And it doesn't take very much stress. It takes such a little stress that it may be that the lights are too bright, that the music on the phonograph isn't quite right, that there's a little noise outside, something. Any stress in this rising phase will trip this man into a bad trip. he will have the same effect as the man who is given the material and doesn't know he's getting it. He will be terrified. He's not seeing pretty visions, he's seeing monsters. He's losing his mind, and he feels it going. He is intensely, extremely, terribly uncomfortable. If he is alone, if it's possible for him, there's only one escape from this discomfort. That's suicide. This man will kill himself if he has the opportunity to do so. If this man who trips into a bad trip in this phase is with a guide, and you're always supposed to take this with a guide, he trips into a bad trip, he becomes paranoid. He immediately blames this intense mental discomfort on the only person that's there to blame it on, the guide. If he can, he'll kill the guide. Now, I'm not talking about rare occurrences. I personally know of 2 attempted and 1 successful murders that have occurred right in here for that reason. Now, in this stage, during the peak of the mental effects, we again get deaths. And these are accidental deaths. I can't emphasize strongly enough how complete this depersonalization, this loss of body image, this omnipotent, godlike, omniscient feeling is that these people get. People in this phase of the mental symptoms frequently kill themselves. No intention of doing it at all, but they do. Many people, and I'm beginning to think that most people, certainly all of the users that I've interviewed at any length, have admitted that in this period of the mental effects, they have felt that they could fly. Now, a user that feels strongly that he can fly and who goes out the first floor window is not in too much trouble. But if he's on the 7th deck, he's not going to make it. The flight is going to be brief. The end is consistently the same. There are probably a fair number of people in the United States bailing out of windows that they had no intention to bail out of. There's a well-documented case on the West Coast. A youngster took this material, godlike in his power, walked into the middle of the expressway and put out his hands to stop the cars, and they killed him. There's a young lady on the coast who, in this phase of an LSD trip, decided to walk across Oakland Bay, and she drowned. It's been 2,000 years since anybody has successfully walked on water. A certain number of people in this phase are going to have a convulsion, like an epileptic convulsion.